I'd like to introduce this year's panellist, David Jones, Chair of the Commercial Committee. Please step forward. Obviously, you heard from David earlier today. Joining him is Claire Sheppard, who joined the TBA as Chief Executive in 2017 after previously working for the Racecourse Association and for Plumpton Racecourse. Claire is the TBA representative on the British Horse Council, International Thoroughbred Breeders Federation and EFTBA. Charlie Liverton has been the CEO of the Racehorse Owners Association since 2016, having previously spent 7 years at Neptune Investment Management. Dale Gibson is going to be joining us as well. He joins us in what is his second spell as interim CEO for the Professional Jockeys Association. Dale started work for the PJ in 2010 as Industry Liaison Officer before progressing to Racing Director. Also delighted to welcome Jemma Marshall, who is President of the National Association of Stable Staff after being elected in 2020 and is also Chairperson to the NARS Lambourne Regional Committee, having brought the committee together back in 2019. Neil Hayward was appointed to set up and then chair the Industry People Board for Horse Racing in December 2022. Neil's national and international business career included board and executive team leadership roles at HS2, Post Office, BT, Ministry of Justice, and Standard Chartered Bank. And David Armstrong, who joined the Racecourse Association as Chief Executive in March 2019 after working with WASPs as Group Chief Executive. David represents the RCA on the BHA board and Commercial Committee, as well as many other industry boards. I'm going to pass the microphone over. I think they're all okay. Oh, no, they're okay. No more mic. You can have it for the floor. Normally, I would say let's kick things off with me asking questions, but I assume that there are more people out there who want to ask questions, and as the clock is ticking, who would like to go first? Anybody out there already keen to go? Or shall I start? I'll start at the back first, if that's all right. Yeah. Sorry, Anna, but you do, like a gazelle, I think it runs in the team.
Thank you very much. Eric Elliott. I've been involved in racing most of my life in various ways, currently the owner of a few jumpers. It seems to me that with regard to prize money, the contribution from racecourses is still pretty opaque. And what I'd like to know is why it can't be a condition of the licensing of fixtures for racecourses to be under an obligation to publish the sources of each of their contribution to prize money, the sources of their income streams, and in particular in relation to media rights.
I guess.
Please.
I guess that question was probably directed to me.
I'll let you start anyway.
So that's a good start, isn't it? Look, it's a fair question and one which we get asked often, and I think the answer is firstly that we've strived to increase the level of prize money across British racing and be successful in doing so over the last few years, such that last year record prize money on offer, and this year that will be exceeded again. So I think the level of prize money is encouraging. I think the point about opaqueness and demonstrating sources of income has also been answered in a number of the presentations the RCA has put out explaining the sources of racecourse income. I'm very happy to take that up offline to remind you of the sources of that. But that's been sent as a presentation from us to the industry. It's been featured heavily in the Racing Post. And we're always, happy to answer those questions when they're asked.
Anyone like to join in?
Not to follow up and just pick up where David started there about this topic, which has been a consistent theme over many years now, certainly the 7 I've been in post. And I think if you were to take yourselves out of racing and into another sport and use tennis as the example, so the players don't turn up at Wimbledon unless they're really comfortable that they are getting an equitable distribution of the income that Wimbledon is deriving from their presence. And I think that's a really good case example whereby the players' representatives, and there's only 2 or 3 of them, sit down every year. And when the white smoke goes up, the players have not got sight of of all of the income streams. They don't have sight of all of the commercial contracts. But what they do have is representatives really comfortable that they're getting a fair and equitable distribution of that gross income stream. It also then allows them to bring partners and sponsors and their wider commercial deals into play. And as a result of that strategic partnership with Wimbledon and the other majors, everybody wins. The reality is media rights are owned by the place where the match takes place. Then they're not owned by the participants, and that's exactly what a lot of our conversations across the industry are driving towards, is that symbiotic relationship whereby there is a mutual understanding that an income stream is not unlocked unless the racecourse puts on the right race program and the right horses turn up to unlock it. And that's exactly what we strive to achieve year on year.
If I could just add something as well in the spirit really of David Jones's presentation this morning, and that is as part of the work behind the 2024 fixture list that the Commercial Committee has been leading. There has been a far greater disclosure of media rights information to the BHA and to the Commercial Committee than has ever been the case before, and that will continue in the future.
You go on, please.
I think it's interesting as well, and it's not disparaging the question, because I know how important that question is for people. If you start anything with, I don't really trust your numbers, that is a real challenge. And part of what I was trying to say this morning is we shouldn't be fighting the battles of the past. Together, we should be facing into the challenges of the future. And what we've tried to do on the Commercial Committee is trust each other, which is quite a difficult thing for some people to do, because a lot of people, and I sense from you, sir, as well, have got scars on their back from various, dust-ups have happened. But what we've tried to do is move into a new world where together, if we grow this cake, everybody benefits. And you get your slide rule out and work out, is he making more money than him, or what about the other person, all the rest of it. But I think there is a new thinking needed and trying to break away. And it's certainly not disparaging the question, because it's on lots of people's minds. And in some ways, we've got to try and find a way of articulating that new world so people understand that's what we're doing. Not fighting the battles of the past, but looking forward to the challenges of the future. But you can't be a prisoner of history. He said, gently pushing back. You can't be a prisoner of history, or we will spend, we will spend years talking about why we got to where we are. We'll start talking about why do we have bookmakers and we don't have a tote, if only it was like France. You have to deal with the here and now of where we are. So I absolutely understand the question. I'm just trying to say we are trying to build a new way of working together, and that needs to be accepting of each other.
I wanted to play devil's advocate and say you do have to earn trust, or you feel that that's sometimes what you have to do, and that will be in itself a task, but it could delay the progression and moving forward. Yes, question.
Hi, I think this is one for Dale. We've spoke a lot this morning about, how we have champions of the sport, young people like engaging with the jockeys, and they're the stars of the sport essentially. But sometimes it's hard to get jockey buy-in to actually do promotional activity. So is there anything in place to encourage the jockeys that they have a platform and they are essentially getting young people into the sport?
Yeah, thanks for that. I thought Jeremy's presentation earlier was terrific, talking about the Racing League and also the fact that we've got to make more of jockeys. At the end of the day, horses can't talk, but jockeys can. And I think we've got some really good young riders coming through. For those of you who saw the social media piece a couple of weeks ago when the Welsh jump jockeys had the race at Chepstow in aid of the Leukemia Fund for Christian Williams' daughter, have a look at it. It was absolutely magnificent. 2 minutes, and it's pure gold. And I think when it comes to casting for the Champions docu-series that starts on Boxing Day, I would suggest whoever casts for those maybe uses one or two of those National Hunt riders. And I think as well, we've got to maybe go to a younger age demographic. It's maybe been a been a fault of the PGAs for some years now. We've maybe gone to an older demographic for whether it's presidents or whether it's PR comment. Tom Marquand is excellent. He's on our board. Tabby Worsley is excellent. She's on our board. So I think as we progress, we've got to start using a younger talent. But we're very, very open to progressing further channels. And I think, without saying too much here, there's quite a lot about to happen in the next 6 months.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
Dina Merson, Simply Racing and Racing Home. Looking to the future, David, we've touched on data. It was talked about quite deeply by Joe last year, and I know it's been touched on today. And I'd be interested to hear particularly Neil's view on data from the People Board. I know it's early days, and welcome to the industry, Neil, but it's certainly something I know a lot of us want to know how that data is going to look, how you're going to collect it, and at what point, because it is so integral to the future that the earlier we do it, obviously, the more we can implement the sort of changes that I'm sure you're looking to make.
Well, look, thank you. It's a good question. I mean, truthfully, this wouldn't be the first industry or the first employer I've worked for where the quality of the people data was not what you would ideally want it to be. So the idea that racing has a particular and specific problem that other sectors don't isn't necessarily true. But I'll caveat that by saying I'm genuinely shocked. I don't believe that you can really be confident as a sport about the welfare of horses if you know so little about the people who look after them. So I start from a mindset that says the legacy, or one of the legacies that the People Board should leave, is we know as much about the people as we do about the horses. So there is a work stream at the moment as part of the Industry People Board's plans, which is around the capturing of workforce data, and there are colleagues in the BHA working on that, and I'm expecting that the 4th meeting of the People Board in December will look at the strategy and plan to create the legacy outcome that I've just defined. By the way, though, you don't have to have a perfect data set to embark upon doing some of the right things. When I look at what the board has looked at so far, we have gathered together more than 80 different research reports that have been written by somebody for one of the employers in racing at some point in the last 5 or 6 years, often sponsored by either the Racing Foundation or the Horse Race Betting Levy Board, but not always. And when you aggregate all of that information together and create a central repository which didn't exist, you see some very clear themes emerging. And I doubt whether a perfect data set would change very much the definition of 11 problems facing racing that we have arrived at as a board. And when we meet next in early November, we'll be looking at a strategy house of sort of 6 themes. We're looking at a range of about 65 different options and interventions that we think might or could make a difference, and we'll be making our own judgments around where the priorities should sit. I'm projecting forward because I think next year it would be really great to be talking about this in detail, because this is the crisis facing racing, the fact that there aren't enough skilled, qualified people, and that has been arguably the case for over 20 years now. Projecting forward, our plan is to make sure that we have presented those strategy and plans to a conversation with the sport between now and March. By the time we reach March 2024, we've created options and choices that are costed around an implementation plan that will challenge the sport to fund for a 3 to 5 year period with a consistent level of income behind initiatives. And then I hope that between March and June next year, the powers that be through the industry programme group and ultimately the BHA board, as David described in the governance structure, will decide to back enough of what we recommend to make a difference. So to go back to your question, the data isn't perfect. It doesn't stop us defining the elusive obvious. The problems facing racing are seen by and understood by all of you in this room as the 1%, but it's the 99% who are not in this room who really matter. Thank you.
Just picking up on that, Jemma, how serious, critical is the staffing crisis, do you think?
Huge. And one way of addressing it would be the working patterns. And in order to change that, we need the NTF to come on board with us, because the introduction of Sunday racing has been a big hit to us, because for most working staff, that Sunday is their only day off in 2 weeks. That's getting up every single morning at 5 o'clock and working for 2 weeks solidly, and then the introduction of Sunday racing. So it's been a big kick in the teeth. And when you're trying to get staff to come into our industry and go, yeah, it's a great industry, but you're possibly not going to get a day off, it's pretty tough. So in order to change that, there are trainers that do this, and they have a 5-day working pattern, Nick Alexander. There are trainers that now work 1 weekend in 3. My boss, Tom Ward, we work 1 weekend in 3. And it's helping. But yeah, it's pretty hard to advertise it as a great industry when the working patterns are the way they are.
And Claire, within the breeding industry, is there the same concern?
Very much so, and it's actually somewhere where we do have some data to sort of back up what everybody is telling us about sort of the critical nature of staffing shortages. The Racing Foundation funded a survey a year or so ago, and when the Public Perspectives who run it presented it to us, they said within a 2-year period they'd never seen an increase in terms of stud staff facing shortages in any industry they'd worked in before, and it was just backing up what we're hearing on the ground that I think across the racing and breeding industries, across the whole equine sector, across the rural economy, actually it's a real challenge, and we're fighting for a smaller pool of people, and we really need to kind of address that, and that's why we really welcome the strategy being put in place, because it's back to, we've been talking a lot about we need to do something. We really do need to do something in this area and do it quickly and do it well.
Indeed.
For all those in the room who just wonder about this, I do want to give you an optimistic view. I mean, I think there are problems that have been overlooked and ignored. I support what David said this morning. The governance structure and decision-making forums that the sport is now organised against creates the reasonable opportunity for the right issues to be brought to the right level for a decision and judgment to be made. And then it will all be about the collaboration and culture and ways of working across the sport changing. There are other industry sectors, employers who are tackling this industry, tackling these sorts of problems that we have in racing and tackling them well. We sometimes think sitting within a racing bubble that is only us. There are 1.2 million vacancies in the UK economy at the moment, so lots of employers are struggling. There will be about 11% fewer people in education aged 11 to 16 by 2035. So this workforce crisis is ahead of every single employer in the UK, and I believe we've genuinely got time to work out what it is that's going to make racing much more attractive to people to join and to keep them. But the idea that that won't involve fundamental change to working practices, the hours that we work, the payment structures, the training, education and support we give people, the support we give to employers, having higher standards of behaviour and culture from all of those employers, the idea that none of that changes can't be true, because all of those things will need to change in order to make the sport a much more attractive place to be. And I have met, I would say, at the front line as I go out and visit training yards and so on, a tremendous amount of enthusiasm for there to be a change, but that won't be the same when people are confronted with what that change means. So I'm sure it will be difficult, but I'm sure that we will get through it together, because otherwise we're simply voting to make our sport smaller. And I don't think anybody in the room wants that.
Anna, did you have someone standing by? In 1 second, Nigel, absolutely.
Hi, Ed Nicholson, Unibet. Just a quick question for the panel. We heard earlier on about how important it is to get new customers. I was just interested to know from the panel's point of view whether they think the focus and support and marketing money should be spent more on attaining new customers or rewarding existing customers, people like owners and breeders and racegoers who are spending a lot of money already coming into the racecourse.
I think it's a balance. I think it's important for us to grow the size of the business, whether that's grow the size of the sport, whether that's in terms of racegoers by making race day more attractive, by promoting to racegoers and bringing people onto the racecourse. But we have to, as you will know perfectly well, the reliance and the importance of the betting industry for our sport mustn't be underestimated. And the ability to provide an attractive environment for gambling in the sport is very important. You'll have seen, of course, and be very familiar with the challenges we face as an industry now with the gambling review and the recent gambling commission consultation that you'll all have read about and seen our responses to. That is an existential threat to the sport, and not the only one. There are others, but it is very important that we address that. If the Gambling Commission's proposals on affordability checks followed through, it could lead to as much as a 25% reduction in prize money in the sport. Now, that's a very serious issue for us and one which we have to address carefully. So our relationships with the gambling sector are very, very important to address that argument as well. In other words, it's defensive as well as going out to grow the sport.
I'm really torn on that question because I agree with everything that David's just said, but the existential threat facing the sport isn't just the short-term issues that David's mentioned about the regulatory or government involvement. It's the fact that actually, unless we spend a lot more time thinking about the 7 to 12-year-olds, how to engage them in being interested in racing and horses and spectating and participating, then actually I think we have fewer people watching racing and fewer people to employ who are interested in being in racing. So I'm afraid I'm in a long-term perspective that says we've got to galvanise the youth of today and the youth of tomorrow in understanding and loving the sport that we've spent so many years loving and watching. And I'm afraid there's an element of where I was listening to the story of the 100, and I am one of those traditionalists who likes going to watch 5-day test match cricket. I've looked at the reinvention of that sport through the 100, and when you sit in a crowd watching a 100 cricket match, you are sitting with a whole different bunch of people than you used to sit watching cricket matches with, and there is an energy and a vibrancy and a culture and a family feel to that is just absolutely amazing to be part of, and I wouldn't have said that when the 100 launched. So I think we've got to think about racing in the context of not just marketing and promoting to solve today's problems. We have real problems if we don't engage with the next generations of participants and spectators. And of course, I don't know how big the pie of money is going to be, David and panel, but if we neglect the future, that might suit all of the people in the room here who are of a certain age and profile, because it will see us out, but we'll have betrayed the future for all of the younger people in the audience.
Just to follow on from that, I think that's really relevant. I've got a now 10-year-old daughter, and we don't go racing, particularly as a family. And it's simple, it's because of alcohol. There's too much alcohol. And it's just not relevant to our children. So we just don't go. Albeit we do go to Ascot because there's a Lavat's, a coffee shop, which my wife is quite posh to. But the point of my piece is we go to netball. And it was thanks to David that I actually took my daughter to an England netball match, England against Jamaica. And we're off shortly to watch England against South Africa. That was the single most relevant event I've ever taken my daughter to, age 9 at the time. Her whole opinion on the sport changed from just being outdoors with her friends, learning to catch, balance, and all the good things that active sport does for your well-being, to all of a sudden it being the most competitive thing she does 3 times a week. It completely flipped. It was so relevant. The auditorium was full of young women and boys, and the parents were desperate for a drink, and there wasn't one.
And just to add to that, I mean, what John just talked about is also about accessibility and inclusion, which are 2 really important things. And it's important to ask our customers why they don't come. What's the turn-off? Cricket has done that, and yes, the 100 is very different. If you went to a T20, there'd be quite a lot of beer. So there's ways of splitting it, so you've got the right venue and the right sort of format for the right kind of customer. Because back to the point made earlier, if we don't fill the feed people in, we're going to end up, you talked about cricket, average age 58. Before you know it, that's 78, and that's it. So I think that's a really, really important thing that we address.
Absolutely. Oh, there you are, Ree.
Hi, I'm Sarah Guttridge from Racing Digital. It was great to hear from David this morning around new, stronger governance and all the committees and strategies that are coming forward from that. But I think it was followed with a bit of scepticism around why is now going to be any different. And I thought it was interesting to hear from, I think, Rory on a later panel to say that it looks like the industry struggles to execute change. And I think that sometimes comes down to perhaps a lack of time, cost, or even feasibility of implementing a technical solution, which then ends up landing on operational staff as extra manual work with a lack of change management. So I guess my question is, from the committees and strategies that are coming out, is greater thought being put to actual implementation and trickling that down and engaging with the people who are then having to bring these in to actually try and force through change, rather than it just being another strategy that gets published and trickles away?
I think, shall I go first? I think one of the most important things that we've done in terms of the organisational changes and at the BHA has been the implementation of a new structure around project management and change and strategy, headed up by Alison Enticknap, with a number of additional headcount associated and working with Alison just to do exactly that. To understand that change and strategies look very good on a piece of paper, but we haven't been very good in the past at turning those into action. So Alison and her team are dedicated to doing that, and they have been actually played a critical role in getting the commercial committee to where it is now and getting the strategy in the 2024 fixture list rolled out. So it's not perfect yet, and we've got lots more to do. And as a board director of Racing Digital, I appreciate the opportunity to champion the Racing Digital project as well, and the benefits that will bring to the sport. Really, I mean, some of it's actually already rolled out. There's a racecourse component that's already rolled out, but it'll start to really hit home in the first 2 quarters of 2024. But that's another example of how we're bringing change to life. But we recognised it couldn't be done without specialist and dedicated staff, which we've now got in place.
Jeremy.
Can I just go back slightly to Neil's point? I think it'd be remiss to be discussing that sort of 7 to 12 age group without mentioning what Racing to School are actually already doing. It is fantastic, really worthwhile job. If you go and spend a day and see how their day is structured. I mean, I spent a day with Racing to School. They're our partner charity in the Racing League. Seeing them at the racecourses, seeing that these children are getting an opportunity to see not just that the only jobs in racing are being a jockey or being a trainer or being an owner, that there are so many other roles within the sport that they might be able to do. Learning through the sport, it's really good. On the days when we've had Racing League events, the effort they've gone to put on special things that are there for the children to engage with that are very racing specific. Going back again, kudos to Dale and the jockeys. They come out and show these children how to ride on the exercises. They show them the exercises that they do. We have a thing called a thigh squat challenge, which is shows just how fit these jockeys are. The children just love it. They're that close. They're actually getting an opportunity to just talk to and engage with people who are undoubtedly, in their eyes, their new sporting heroes. It's a small start, but I think Racing to School are doing a great job, and it would be a mistake not to mention what they're doing.
No, thank you. Thank you for mentioning them, and also Riding a Dream Academy. And there are lots of initiatives that I know exist at the individual employer level and at racecourses and so on. I think my argument to the sport is not that they are the wrong things to do. It's actually that there is a bigger, more joined up, coordinated and greater effort that's needed. And those are the right beginnings, but I think there's something about scale that's missing.
Which comes down to budget.
Yeah.
Ree, yes.
Hi, Freedom from Urban Equestrian. Just to say, I've really enjoyed the conference. I've really listened to what everyone said. I've really enjoyed every presentation. And something's really been biting me. It's about the crisis. Like, I didn't know it was such a big thing, this theme of crisis. And there seems to be a common theme across everything. From the first presentation, I think it's David, mentioned communication, really important. It's really important. And then the second presentation was about changing perception. And one of the things that cricket has done to change the perception of cricket, from Vikram, if I'm correct, really, really true. And then in relation to sustainability, going to Leicester City and the community, I'm from Leicester. I know that organisation very, very well. I've got friends who are in that organisation, and they do really, really good work. It's absolutely true to see what they actually do in the inner cities. It's something that I'm very proud of, coming from Leicester. In relation to what we do, we are very well known outside of Leicester, but we're not very well known in Leicester. For example, I'm 44 now, and I've only been to Leicester Racecourse twice.
Wow.
Yeah, twice. And it's only since I started Urban Equestrian that I've managed to get into Leicester Racecourse and realise it's not such a bad place.
Can I just ask why you've only been twice?
Perception, not feeling comfortable, not believing it was for me before I really got serious into horses. And the only reason I actually went was because in 3 years we've managed to get 5 young people into the horse racing industry as working jockeys, 10 young people doing pony racing or on the verge of doing pony racing, that I've now had to force myself into those circles. Well, one thing that I found is that organisations, they need to be serious. They need to be serious because there's a lot of talk, but there's very little action. And I say that from, it's very easy for us to be invited to Leicester races now that we are doing what we're doing, but we're tired of just being invited to watch the races. We're more interested in, can we sit down with the board to talk about how can we get more urban audiences into Leicester races? Because when we go, there's hardly anyone there. It's dead. You know what I mean? And I'll give you an example. We took 163 people to Champions Day just on Saturday. Yeah. Should have been 300 people, but the storm and certain things that's going on in the world at the minute meant that people either didn't attend or had other priorities. But that just shows you what we can do. You know, we could easily take 300 people. We're in talks regards Cheltenham Festival next year to potentially take about 500 people. Royal Ascot, we could take maybe 1,000 people. It's something that's very easy for us to do, but we need to have the engagement at the grassroots level from the likes of Leicester Racecourse and so on. You know what I mean? In terms of the fantastic work that we're doing in the industry, it's really frustrating that we don't get any kind of recognition for what we do. You know what I mean? And I know there's other urban organisations that do the similar thing. We're trying to, you know, grow the horse racing industry, and it's really important that we do grow it. There's a whole market that's basically untapped.
So there you have it. There are 1,000 customers that want to come racing.
Yeah, absolutely.
David Armstrong could go straight on the phone to Leicester Racecourse. Get off your backside.
Actually, you're half a step ahead of me. I was actually about to say that you'll be getting a call from Leicester Racecourse tomorrow morning. And my team in the audience will probably already have picked that up, and Leicester will already have been told. You will be getting a call in the morning.
So I think this is quite an interesting point here, and I think, Jeremy, you said it a minute ago, you know, but where's the budget? And I challenge that, because I'm not sure that this is all about budget. And I think a lot of the reasons why things don't happen is because it's really easy to say, well, I just don't have the budget. It's not my fault. I'm not in charge of the budget. If my boss doesn't give me budget, I can't do it. And actually, if you look at sport globally and domestically, the reason sport is winning at the moment, either the elite end of the sport or the well-being societal piece, it's because of partnerships. It's because of strategic partnerships. And if you look at cricket in the Southwest, that is 100% community-led. They've got every village cricket team, all the way up through to the county level, working together in an integrated way. And we don't do that. We do not have what I call, and don't shoot me, David, we don't have a contact strategy that genuinely understands whose role is it to unlock what partnership to deliver what initiative. We just say, you're right, we just don't have the budget. We're skint. I mean, we only turn over 100 million at the levy board. We've only got the Racing Foundation with X. We've only got 350 million from bookmakers. We've only got 650 million from owners. We're skint, aren't we? We've got no budget, nothing. The irony is not lost.
I think the time for action is important as well. I mean, Ben's bit about football was really interesting because actually Leicester should be doing something different to Carlisle in a way. There's no one model, and there is something about us giving people the freedom to engage and get out and do stuff, even if it's little stuff, to make you feel welcome there or to find out why do you not feel welcome at the moment and how can we actually change that is a really, really important thing. And this is where it isn't always relevant to kick it upstairs, but it's to kick it downstairs and say everybody in this room has an opportunity in some ways to change something because you are all attached to something somewhere. And that is where it is far more powerful than basically saying something must be done. I think part of the conference today is something must be done. And I don't mean we at the top of the stage, I mean all of us need to do it. And I think that is something that could be really powerful. And it's great that David picks up stuff like that, but I would argue, the sport relies on this community. All communities are different. All those communities are our customers, effectively. They're not only our customers, they're effectively our employees. So there's a whole big network there that we have to absolutely engage to make sure that we do the right thing for the right people.
Well, you started off the day talking about change by collaboration, and here we are at the end of our session. Gentleman from Urban Equestrian with 1,000 clients about to head to Leicester, Ascot, Cheltenham. We're making change with collaboration, so it can happen. We all have the responsibility, as David says, to make it change. We all talk a good game, and we know we do. We all talk about it. We come to these conferences. We all chat amongst ourselves, and we all have good intentions. But really, we've got to do more than that. We've got to make it happen by doing things. Even if it's a small change, even if it's an environmental change, whatever it is, just make one little change, the butterfly effect, who knows. Thank you very much to David, to Claire, to Charlie, Dale, Jemma, Neil and David. On a personal level, and I think for everyone here, this wouldn't have happened without the help of Ree, wherever you are, Neil, Anna, Antonia. If you don't mind just giving them a little round of applause because they have put in an incredible shift. They've done an amazing job in organising the conference. Anna, you just missed us all. That applause was for you. So please, once those surveys are completed, drinks will be served in the main foyer. So as soon as you've handed in your survey, join us for a glass. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you make a difference. Thank you.